From Gables Residential, Phil Altschuler. Phil, come and join us. Tell us a little bit about Gables, just for those people that are not familiar with the company. Give us a little bit of a background.
Sure. Gables is a residential real estate company. We basically build, lease, manage apartment communities across the country.
Okay.
And we've been around since 1982. It started with a company called Trammell Crow, which split off into several different companies, one of them being Gables. Was a public company for a while, was taken private in 2005. Now it's a private company owned by a fund.
Okay.
Interestingly enough, it was owned by Lehman Brothers and ING.
Oh my.
Neither of which are around anymore.
So interesting fact, Phil, you've been at Gables now, I think we talked about 4 years.
That's right.
And prior to that, you were with a company that actually had in its portfolio Barnum and Bailey, Siegfried and Roy, and Disney on Ice.
And getting the elephants to take the assessment was a...
Yes. So talk about the journey. So the goals before we set this off. When we talked the other day about this, Phil was just really passionate about making a change when he got to the company. I think you said you were there like 8 months before you kind of figured everything out and went to the executives and said, hey, look, this is the change we want to make. So give us some of the thoughts behind how you kind of formulated those ideas and what it was that made you want to make that big change.
Sure. So I was there about 8 months. And people say I was trying to figure it out. I think they were trying to figure out what I did there. So I figured I better start and do something big. The company is all about taking care of the way people live. And when you think about that for a second, it can mean a lot of things. So I went around and I started asking employees, what does that mean? And I had the same answers. Like people would look at me with 3 heads. The tenured people actually knew what it meant. It was, giving exemplary service. It was going above and beyond. It was making people really feel like where they lived was their home. And the people that didn't really know were coming in and didn't share that same culture, didn't share the same beliefs, and I'm not sure they connected with it. So I started to think, okay, well, in selection, what can we do to maybe get that up front? And I'm not sure how many of you think about this as you're hiring people, but culture, the culture fit, I find is more important than anything else. You can find people who are really technically very good, but you fire them because they don't get along with anybody in your company. So what we had a prior assessment called the AVA.
Okay.
And it was a regular behavioral assessment. We would check to see if you were detail-oriented, big picture, or if you're dominant. And what we found out was, even when we matched people with a profile, it didn't always give you that sense of success. It was missing the cognitive piece, so you didn't know if they were smart, you just know what they liked. And it was missing the culture fit, which I thought was so important. So in a search, we came across PeopleAnswers. And I'm the new guy on the block. I had no credibility. And here I am saying, let's get rid of this thing that costs like nothing and buy this thing that's really expensive.
Not that
expensive. Look at me the same way. I get the same looks I'm getting from you all.
It's really good value.
Well, it turns out it is a good value.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So it took me about 8 more months to convince people. And, I'm on calls. You ever on a call and people are using, remember BlackBerry Messenger? I know we all have iPhones now. And they're BlackBerry messaging each other on the call. So, because they're just too in sync. And so I started to wear them down one by one. I finally got them to agree to do a pilot. And we actually have 2 lines of business. We will build and manage our own properties, but then in addition, we also manage, any of you own an apartment building, by the way, just see me later, we will manage it for you and we'll do an awesome job. But I couldn't get them to agree to put that line of business in the assessment. How are we going to pay for it? How are we going to figure it out? So instead, what we did was I convinced them on the REIT side, which is the stuff we own, that we will just do it there. So we roll it out, and we assessed everyone. I convinced them all we need to assess every associate with as big a pool as possible.
Right.
And then we did the performance appraisals. We got it implemented, and we started using this. Now, I came out and said, I got to have a win here, right? I got a lot on the line. So I said, anyone under 70, can't hire them. I don't care about this recommended, not recommended nonsense. It's simply 70 and above, good. That's my thumbs up. 70 and below, or 69 below, thumbs down. Well, as you can imagine, I got a little bit of pushback because some of these jobs are hard to find. But we started to notice something that was pretty interesting. Managers that managed both REIT and these fee properties, so they had some where people would take the assessment, and some they'd come to, they would have no assessment. They really liked the assessment. Now, we did no training, by the way. You could read the report and get a pretty good sense of about a person. So what we started to see is they started posting every job, even for the fee properties, at the REIT properties.
So they were cheating the system?
They were cheating the system.
Okay.
Which we liked and encouraged. I love being right. I just sit here and just remember. It feels good.
So I like that too. So let's talk about...
Come on, you all do too.
Okay. So you did a couple of studies, and the numbers, this is particular metrics and some of the results we show from a percentage perspective, but I think when we talked about this, I was intrigued about the way that you tried to harness the knowledge that we have and the people that we have to support you in doing this. And again, it goes back to the message I had earlier. So give us a little bit of insight into how you kind of took advantage of that or leveraged the people that we have internally to help you build this kind of thing.
I like how nicely you put that, by the way.
Okay.
You see, doing all this I can't even say the word, statistical analysis to provide ROI information is a challenge for me and for my team. So he says we, utilize them. I think we dumped it on him and said, hey, we need to show ROI on this thing. Please get your team of experts to crank the numbers out. And their very first comment was, we don't have enough data because we wanted stuff early. You see, after we had gone in and did it, remember, bifurcated 50%, I convinced PeopleAnswers to give me for free the rest of the company. And I said, I'm going to tempt them. Give it and then take it away. And sure enough, it was August. They found money. They didn't want it taken away. They found money to fund it through the end of the year, which was a pretty powerful sense of feedback. But when they were doing that, they wanted to know what the ROI was. So I called you, and you guys turned around some pretty impressive numbers. We started to see that the people during that first several months who took the assessment had a much greater chance of success than those that didn't. And in fact, who here has ever been to an orientation class, right? And you've got all these great people, and there's that one person, you're like, how in the world did this person get hired? Well, after PeopleAnswers, we had one of those experiences. And so I pick up the phone and I called this guy back here, Chris. And I said, Chris, I want all their PeopleAnswers scores. And sure enough, everyone 98, 87, 92, 32. Who wants to guess? And there's money in this, right, Simon?
Sure there is.
Who wants to guess which one got the 32 is the one
Right.
that didn't fit, right? So we knew anecdotally it was working really well. Then we had the research, and your folks came out, presented to our whole operations group, and for what the parts they understood, they were very impressed.
So in terms of that operations group, so they're the stakeholders here. These are the guys who own the purse strings. So how do you continue to reinforce this back to them? What is the process internally? Now, you've got their buy-in initially. Do they think, hey, this is just a blip, or this is just, the economy's down, or, how do you reinforce that and get those laggards to come with you on this journey?
Well, the truth is, and you all know this, resources are always scarce in an organization, and everybody has a project they want to do, and people try to fund it from somewhere. So I always believe you have to show ongoing value from something. So we do ROI analysis on basically every initiative we have, because I know if we show value that it'll keep going and going.
Right.
Same with PeopleAnswers. And so again, we did another study just recently, and the results were even more impressive. What we did, and I didn't talk about this on our journey, but at the beginning of this year, we did a road show around the country, and we did it in person. Me and a person from PeopleAnswers, our CAM, Brian, IT guy, we all went out and we talked to people. And, we always, in training, it's easy to go and check the box and say, okay, we've trained you, but And I said this yesterday, but does that mean anyone has learned anything? So we try to do it from a different perspective and give people an angle that they had not necessarily considered before. And then once we created an awareness, and I'll give you the example is, how many of you have ever ruled out a candidate because they made a mistake on their resume? Come on, you people don't have hands? There's a couple of you who are willing to admit it. Most of us have done it. And the thing is back in the day, it was the only way we really knew how to get a big stack of resumes down into a few that we wanted to call. But now we've got all these different tools and science. But we still have a lot of employees, right, or managers who still use that methodology in selection. So we're teaching them, here you have science. Use a new tool. It's awkward at first, but once you get the hang of it, you might really like it. And we found when we did that and then had Brian show why it was real, why it worked.
Right.
We got tremendous amount of buy-in.
Excellent.
In fact, they started to police each other because they didn't want to deal with the person that was hired in under the 70. And even though we don't require 70 anymore, they like the 70. Some of them say, hey, I won't hire them if they're under an 85, which it's all about the tool.
So, so that's really insightful. So, looking at the audience, what advice would you give them now in terms of, okay, we're just about to embark on this. What's the takeaways and the learnings you had? If you had to do it over again, kind of things that you'd do to improve it.
Well, my advice to the audience is, if you're going to establish a brand, right, a brand for yourself, there would be three things. You'd want a clear message. You'd want to deliver it consistently, and you'd want it to be, the constancy. You'd want to constantly reinforce it. And I think PeopleAnswers is no different. What you're going to do is you're going to roll out something new and different. And there's a time commitment from candidates. You'll have sourcing issues. I mean, you'll hear all the reasons why it doesn't work. But the reality is out of 100 potential candidates, there's probably 2 or 3 good ones. And if you could find them, you'd spend so much less time in everything else. The cost of turnover, and you can see it here, we calculated about $5,000 a person. If you're going to go out and spend your money to buy something for $5,000, I know you'd be reading those Amazon reviews and talking to friends, and you'd be really kicking the tires. Why won't we do that with people? The whole point in doing this for us, and RATS ranks people by scores, I said, I want you to spend the same amount of time in recruiting and interviewing, just on less people, just on the people who fit. That's my advice.
Excellent. So next steps on the journey. What else is ahead of you?
We're going on another road show. We're going to go back out there, and again, we have interview guides which we rolled out. Again, it's try to hit it from a different angle. I believe that you've got to keep reinforcing the message. We have turnover throughout the year no matter what, and so new managers need to hear the message. Managers that have been around, it's all about building your skills and making them better and better. Fact is most managers don't really do this often enough to ever become that good at it. So the more you can work with them and train them and give them the skills to be effective, the better they'll be. And the truth is, ask a question that's not on Google, because candidates know about Google too, and they look up the questions and the answers and just tell you what they think you want to hear. Right. So we try to give them a different construct, so they ask different follow-up questions, dig deeper, that type of thing.
Perfect. Phil, that's fantastic. I'm sure everybody got tons out of that. So a big round of applause. Phil from Gables, thank you.
Thank you.